What's up, everyone? It's week 11.
Me and my homies, we tied it in the club.
Players Club, DFS Army VIP podcast.
Kick it in the tub 'cause we keep much ass.
My name is Kevin Allen, aka the
I got a
Geek.
hoe named Real DeReal. She got a buddy named SB12.
We're gonna break down week 11, crazy week.
That's why the beats that you hear coming real
Some
tight.
insane pricing, some super studs. We're gonna try to squeeze into some lineups. We're gonna do some math. I've got some really exciting ideas for this one. So there'll be a value-based lineup build that we're gonna do.
I run my own and I'm my own self person.
I'm going to teach you how I build lineups for tournaments without having to use the optimizer. Handcrafted. I like to make 10, 15 handcrafted lineups every week. Let's do this.
Press play on remote at the Players Club. Me and my homies, we tied it in the club. Chop
Right.
That's how we do it at the Players Club. Jump the pool, keep it in the tub, 'cause we keep much ass.
All right. What's up, guys? I am back. We're breaking down the week 11 slate. This is a really interesting one. And before I get into the actual slate breakdown, one of the things I want to talk about, and one of the things we're going to get into at the end of this pod, I'm breaking up this video. I'm changing up the format just a smidge, right? Every week, I like to go through each position group, right? We want to go through each position group and kind of just look who's a good play for cash, who's a good tournament play, how are we going to stack it, all of that good stuff. But just doing that, it doesn't always show you how to construct a lineup. So what I'm going to show you next is how I build lineups, how I start with the value, the core. We could put something together and then build off of it and make a few different iterations based on various team and game stacks. And we're going to make actual lineups that you will see me. I'm not fucking putting this effort in if I ain't putting that lineup in. So you're going to see me making some lineups while we're doing this. Now, part of the reason I'm doing that, and one of the things I want to talk about when it comes to NFL, this is the time of year when NBA starts kicking up, right? Basketball is fun. It's every day. It's a lot of money to be made. And one of the beautiful things about daily fantasy basketball is it's very, very projection oriented. Okay. And I'm going to tell you how crazy it is for basically every night on daily fantasy basket. Like when you play, everybody's on the same core players. Why? Because most projection systems are picking up certain things. And ours better than most. I think ours is the best. But you see these other people playing from other projection systems, and they're on the same guys a lot of the time. So a lot of times it becomes like a 2v2 or that kind of thing when you're trying to go up in cash. Like everybody's got the same core, and then it's like 2 or 3 players are different. NFL isn't quite like that, right? The projections for football are just not as accurate because there's so many things that go into a player scoring great fantasy points and great fantasy production in a football game. And some of it is just like coaches' decisions at random moments. We can't project players to like get X amount of fantasy points per touch or per minute the way we can for NBA. With football, it's like, hey, wide receiver gets tackled at the 1 and then the running back slams it in. Or the wide receiver gets into the end zone. It completely changes the effect of the fantasy scoring. Right? So the beautiful thing about daily fantasy football and fantasy football, but more so daily fantasy, we get to choose our teams, is we get to use our imagination a little bit. Or I don't want to say imagination. That's the wrong word. We get to use our creativity and think through each lineup. And I'm going to talk us through that as I go through each of these lineup constructions that we build. We have one certainty. There's one absolute that we know when we're entering a tournament, and it's different from cash. But let me explain what cash and tournaments are. You know what? A lot of people don't know the difference. Cash games being, head-to-heads, 50-50, situations where I'm just trying to beat out, half of the other entrants in a contest. And that's where a lot of the overlap happens in NBA across the board. But a lot of that overlap will happen. We'll be on kind of similar cash plays, high-owned players. And in tournaments, and so cash games pay out the top 50%, and there's no great reward in a cash game for like coming in first. That's the difference. I'm not rewarded in cash for producing on DraftKings, a 220-point lineup, because if the cash line was 172, then everybody 172.1 and over got paid the same. If you did if you put up a 220, big shit. That's a cash game. Now, in head-to-heads, you do have a factor where you're rewarded a little bit for higher scores in terms of your overall winning percentage, but still you use sort of a cash lineup for those. And then tournaments are like what you see here on the screen, the Millie Maker. Contest that pays out the top 20% of people, but, you've got a million of the $3 million, 33, never enter this contest. Or enter it because we want Millie Maker winners. We've had our people win it. But essentially, this is a rip, right? So there are much better. I'll show you. Actually, fuck this. I'm going to show you a better one. But this one pays out $1 million or 33.3% of the prize pool to first place. Second place, it's only 100,000. Can you imagine? It fucking sucks. You're in a million, and then you drop to 100. Now you're like, oh, 100,000 is great. But man, you could have won $1 million. It should go from $1 million to like 500,000. Okay, I came in second. But let me show you a better contest. I don't want to have this one. I don't want to have this one as the one I'm even going to build my examples from. Now, reminder again. Let's go to the slant. This is a much better contest. Why? Take a look. Margin 14% here. This on this screen, it will give you the information. Pays out 20% of finishers, minimum cash 2%. First place, 10%. Tasty. Now, what's the difference between this and the Millie Maker? The Millie Maker, let's go back to that one. This is the ultimate in top-heavy GPP. Look what this thing does. First place, 33%. Top 10, 41. But first place gets almost all the money in this contest. Between first place and the 15% margin, all of the entry fees are gone to first place and to DraftKings. So understand what you're fighting against in this contest. Half of the money in the contest is gone just to one out of 130,000 people. Let's see what the play action looks like. We've got to talk some bankroll management sometimes, guys. Here, the play action, much better. So these are much more, less top heavy. First place, 8%. Top 10, 20%. This is a massive contest that you can get into, but it's not ridiculous, right? It's not giving all of the money to first place. First place is great. But, I mean, chances of beating out 475.6K other people, it's like nothing. You might as well just buy a lotto ticket. Like, beating that many people is fucking bananas. But, I mean, could I have a good score here? Sure. Could I be top 100? Sure, I get $150. That would pay for my 20. So you have a chance here. If you anywhere near the top of this contest, you made an incredible lineup. This is the type of contest where you don't want to use any kind of chalk. Okay, we look at ownership projections on the domination station, and you just want to, like, as soon as you see the high number, here are your ownership project. Where are we on? FanDuel or DraftKings? We're on DraftKings. As soon as you start to see these numbers high, just stay off of this group. I mean, don't touch any of that. Right? Let's stick with, in this kind of contest, especially at wide receiver. Let me show you something. If you want to get into a big tournament, you don't play. I love DJ Moore. We all love DJ Moore. All good. You don't play the 21% owned wide receiver in a big tournament like that. You might say, well, what if he goes off? Okay. All right. So me and 21% of 400,000 other people all have that same lineup. All right. That same guy. Like, am I going to beat 80,000 other lineups? I better have some other uniqueness. But we know that wide receivers bust at a high rate. So you might as well just stay away from high owned wide receivers. That's how you do it. You find somebody low owned, 10%. Godwin, 7%. Sure. That's what you want in a tournament. You look down this list and you see names that are good, but going to be low owned. You're like, all right, I'll take DJ Chark for 2%, I guess. What if he goes off? So that's the kind of thing. That's the difference between cash and tournaments. Now, getting back to what I was saying earlier, and again, everybody who's here for the breakdowns and the player picks and the lineup, we're getting to it. But what I want to do is teach you guys the approach here, we've got to know what the approach is to daily fantasy football. And so you want to be able to use your creativity to apply the certainties that we know into your lineup. Now, what are the certainties that we know that can help you win a tournament, a GPP, right? The certainties are every spot in your lineup needs to go off. Okay? What does that mean? You're not beating these people if any of the players that you pick don't have an excellent game. You might be able to get away with it if one player doesn't do spectacular. But you're not getting away with it if like more than one. And all of the others have to be crushing. So that's what correlation is about. That's what I've been talking about for 3-4 years on this podcast, on my breakdowns, in my sheets. People still don't get it. What does it mean? Just today, literally just today, somebody sending me lineups like, you guys send me lineups. Don't send me lineups. Like, please ask me a question here on the show. But somebody's sending me lineups with like uncorrelated players for tournaments. Or opposite, negative correlation, like a quarterback with a non-pass catching running back, for example. Negative correlation. Why would this work? What are you thinking will happen in this game that will cause this combination to win you the tournament? Okay? What about Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram go together in a positive way? If Lamar Jackson is putting up 40 fantasy points, do we think that Mark Ingram is going to get to 30? Fuck no. That's not how it works. Do you think that Dak Prescott having a smash game will lead to a smash game for Zeke Elliott? No. It's the opposite. If Elliott's putting up 3 touchdowns, if he's smashing, then Dak is not going to have a good game. And I don't need a good game. I need a smash game. So that's not how it works. You want to put players together that complement each other, or at least don't negatively affect one another. I don't want them to negatively affect one another because that will cause you to not win the tournament. So the other part of this discussion is daily fantasy football, art more than science. So we discussed the science of it. It's not really, we discussed the science of it. The science is players, the certainty that we have are a player that is going to win you a tournament will be having an astoundingly good day, right? He's going to be having a great day. Who is he affecting with this great day? Like, what players will be negatively affected or positively affected? I would argue that if Christian McCaffrey is smashing to the point where he can make value at $10,500 salary, which means he has to deliver for you to win a tournament with him 35 plus fantasy points and ideally 40 plus, because we want to get 4x on DraftKings is about 200. We know it takes 230 to 270 fantasy points most weeks to win the tournament. Now, that said, you can afford a little bit less than that up top here, because in order to make that work, you're going to have to take some guys at 4K who deliver 6, 7, 8x. So that's why it's okay when they're more expensive. You don't need the full 4x from a guy, or a 5x. You don't need that when they're very expensive. You need 4, because when you do that, you've got to get even more production out of your cheapies. But if he's doing enough, if he's doing enough, Christian McCaffrey is doing enough to smash the slate open, that means he must have not only got probably 100 passing yards, probably 100 receiving, rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, something in that range. Even that, multiple pass catches, multiple touchdowns, all of it. Crossing 100 at either or the running or the receiving or both. Well, what's going to happen if that happens and he's this much money? You know who's not going to be smashing the slate open? DJ Moore, chalk. Why? Sure, he gets a lot of targets every week, but if he's not scoring touchdowns, what's he going to get you? He needs to cross 100, catch 10 times. He'll get you 20. Well, 6, 12, 18, 24. So he doesn't even get me this 20 that he's going to score with no touchdown. That doesn't even get me to 4x. So that doesn't get me to 4x. Forget about the 5x that I need. If Christian McCaffrey is sucking up all of the touchdowns, it's going to be DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel that suffer. Now, why am I talking about that? That's because when you're putting the lineup together and you start with Christian McCaffrey, okay, I like Christian McCaffrey. He's a core play. I like DJ Moore. He's a very good play this week. Yeah, sure he is standalone, but don't mix him with McCaffrey. If he's breaking the slate open, that probably means McCaffrey isn't. And if Moore is your wide receiver and you think he's going to break the slate open, then you might as well, fade McCaffrey in that lineup and use Kyle Allen as your quarterback. On the flip side, if you think that if you're playing Julio Jones, for example, in your lineup, or let's say you're playing Matt Ryan in your lineup, right? You want to do a stack around that game, and I'll show you how we're going to build these out. 15 minutes in, we haven't started breaking down the actual players yet. We will. I promise you, we will. But I just want to give the basics. You start with Matt Ryan. Ooh, good spot. No Bradbury this week, right? So then we say, all right, well, what's his best guy? Well, his best guy is Julio Jones. Should I put Brian Hill, a running back who doesn't catch passes, into the lineup with Matt Ryan? No. They don't go together. If Matt Ryan is smashing, Brian Hill could have a good game, but he's not going to be smashing. We need smashers to win the tournament. We need players that all go off for above expect. Not to mention Hill is so chalk that's a little scary to play him in tournaments. But we need guys who smash in our lineups together when we're trying to build a tournament-winning lineup. Jones and Ridley. Why? Or Gage or Ridley. Why? Because these two guys are scorers. Or, usually with a quarterback, the one that indicates the quarterback is having a smash game isn't when the primary receiver is going off. It's when one of the secondary receivers go off. Right? Because the primary receiver, when we check the numbers on last season, we had a correlation matrix. I don't use it anymore because it was the same every week for every team, and I found that I don't need to look at it. That's why it's not here. People ask, why isn't it here? I don't want bullshit tools that you don't need to look at. We already figured it out. And it is the same every week. Yes, quarterback is correlated with running backs and all skill players from the opposing team a little bit. And he's correlated with his primary wide receiver, his secondary wide receiver even more, his tight end even more. Now, why is it more with the secondary? Because a quarterback and his primary wide receiver are usually doing good. It doesn't indicate that he's having a smash game. When the quarterback has a smash game, it's when the primary wide receiver does his thing and the secondary wide receiver, the number 2/number 3/tight end, one of those also goes off. That takes the quarterback from a regular game to, oh my God, he fucking crushed it, right? That is why we build correlation into our lineups. And the second part of this is we don't fucking know, okay? Half the time, NFL is so volatile. If you actually looked at what accurate projections look like, it's nowhere near what it is. Like, I've said this many times, I don't think it clicks in people's heads. Accuracy and projections for football is something like 45% R squared, which means basically 42, 44 when you measure these different systems. The accuracy. Whereas in basketball, it's 70% accurate. It's a very big difference. 40% accurate. The bust rate in football on the best players is still 40 to 50%. And on wide receivers, it's closer to 70%. Like the bust rate is crazy high. Basketball, 20%. So it's really different. It's really different. And so there's a lot more art here. Once we understand the science of correlation, then there's art of lineup construction. This is where your creativity comes into place. I don't like telling people what to do with their tournament lineup because if it looks good to me, it might be too chalky. I'm nervous to give you like a crazy tournament lineup because I don't want you to tell you, hey, take this fucking guy out, and all of a sudden he goes off. I don't know. What I do look at when people show me a lineup is it correlated or is there negative correlation? So the only time you'll get a pretty, let's say, intense response out of me is when I see negative correlation. Like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Okay, that means you didn't listen. You don't listen to my pods. You don't listen to the breakdowns. I don't. Have you not been here for the last 5 years and been talking about this shit? I don't understand. So then I tell myself when I see that, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I think these things, but I don't say them enough because I felt like, oh, I said this shit like last year or 3 weeks ago. And then I realized, oh, only maybe people don't see it. I don't know. So I want to show, that's what I want to talk. I want to understand there's a way of putting lineups together, right? There's no science to it, or there's no certainty to it. We take the certainty of knowing that if this lineup wins, all of these guys have to smash. And then we can apply that and say, what scenarios happen that will cause this? And what will be negative and positive within the players themselves in the lineup that I'm constructing right now? I love it. You get to think deep on it. Get deep thoughts. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Well, deep thoughts. All right. I went off for long enough, 21 minutes, without having broken down anything on the slate yet. So let's get into week 11. If for those of you who are left, because I'm sure a lot of people shut this shit off already. For those of you who are left here, the goal today is we're going to break down all the games. We're going to talk about the Geeks Picks plays. We're going to talk about the best plays. And then at the end, we're going to do a bottom-up lineup construction, a value-based, and then we're going to build some hybrid lineups off of that. So let's get into it. Okay. Clear this. Now, one of the tools I use every single week is the Statsational power ranking sheet that we have on dfsarmy.com. I know no one knows where to find it. It's so hard. Even though every single week I show you on the show how to find it, you go to DFS Army, you click on Beat the Bookie, then you go to the NFL tab, you click on Power Rankings. Very tough to find. Here you have the raw data. I'm not even going to get into the raw data because it takes too long. I've explained it many times. And you have that brought together on a team game-by-game basis. Now, what is this showing you? This shows you expected rushing yards for, passing yards for every single team on the slate. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. Where was the information about head smashing? I don't know. It wasn't here. But it did tell you don't expect a lot of offense, right? And what do we get? A shitty game with very little offense. Pretty accurate. Dallas, lots of yards. Rushing, passing, everything. 326 yards passing, 100. I wish the Lions had Matt Stafford. I really would be more excited about this game. But I'm afraid, and this is part of the whole deal with talking about how lineups work together and players correlate and whatnot. I do have concerns about Detroit being able to sort of make a game of it, but sharp fellow I know named John Alessia told me on the DFS Army Wolfpack that all I need to worry about is what the line says. Now, unfortunately, the line is widening. Originally, let's take a look at the line history because I remember this being different. What? Oh, here we go. Yeah, I remember this being much closer. 6.5, now 7. Like we were talking about, it was a 3-4 point spread. I was like, okay, nope. And it's getting worse. Game total coming down. Don't like it. Don't like that. Atlanta, Carolina, not as much happening here as you'd want. Atlanta 276 yards passing, okay. Now Carolina's down Jacoby Bradbury, so Atlanta's passing outlook a little better. Carolina decent running, but not a crazy high expected running total. For a game with a massively high total, the numbers here don't project as spectacular as you might think. Still going to be all over it, but the numbers don't project as spectacular as you might think. Jags, Colts, a lot of running, not a lot of throwing. Tough to trust these numbers with the Jaguars. Now, I should give my pointer here. Tough to trust these numbers with the Jaguars getting Foles back. So it's going to change the dynamic of the team. I expect they'll be better at passing, but this is the numbers. Minnesota, lots of rushing yards. That points to Dalvin Cook. Not a lot of throwing for either team. Not a lot of passing. Don't like the passing games here. We like the running game for Minnesota. Jets, Washington, just a stinker. Buffalo, rushing yards, but it could be Josh Allen stealing them. Very tricky. Not a lot of overall yardage here going on. I'm just going through these real quick. Houston, Baltimore, lots of rushing yards. Not as much passing yards as you would hope. Not as many rushing yards for Houston as I would think. Carlos Hyde in play. Interesting game. San Francisco, rushing yards. Arizona, maybe rushing yards as well. A little bit of passing yardage for San Francisco. Here we go. Philadelphia, rushing yards. 121. Miles Sanders. Keep it in mind for later. That's a big number against New England. These are primetime games. So that takes us through the basics of the slate. Now let's go player by player, position by position. Start at the quarterback position. And of course, let's just go to my cheat sheet. Fuck that. Right? Let's just use the Geek pick sheet because I like using the Geek pick sheet because I write it. And sometimes when I'm doing the Players Club, I change some shit because now I'm looking at it for this 20th time, but at least I go through it methodically on the Players Club rather than how I'm frantically adjusting it over the course of the week. We're going to start at the top. Lamar Jackson is a fucking beast, and he cannot be stopped. 7,700 is a reasonable price for what we get out of Lamar Jackson. The guy rushes for like a running back, 60 yards. When they need him more, 100, 150, 70, 60, 70. So he's starting off every game with a floor of about 6 fantasy points, and he almost always rushes for a touchdown. That gets you 12 points before he even threw a pass. This is why he's always hitting these numbers. 20-point floor. Now, in a game where he's facing an opponent that can score, like Houston, they should be able to score. That's as good of a cash play as you're ever going to see. The problem with playing him is going to be affording him. We'll get to that when we build a lineup. But he does not need to be stacked in tournaments, in my opinion. The only stack mates are Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. Both are kind of expensive for their volume. So definitely tournament only. If I use him in tournaments, I don't mind stacking him with one or both of those guys. Marquise Brown has 2 touchdown, 120-yard upside every single game. That he's an explosive player, but he's always hurt. Got that Q tag, makes me fucking sick. And then Mark Andrews, same deal. I mean, he scores a lot of touchdowns. He's the main guy that they're throwing to. And a lot of games he'll get 8 to 10 targets. Recently, he hasn't been getting those numbers. But again, if Jackson is going to smash, people say you could play him naked. He's so much more expensive than every other quarterback that, in my opinion, if he's going to smash to the point where it was worth paying $1,000 more than the next cheapest guy, he is going to have to throw for touchdowns as well. It won't be all done with his legs, because what he could do with his legs can get us to about 20 fantasy points on a great game. So we need to find the extra 15 to 20 via the pass. Good cash play, great cash play. Somebody that I think you don't have to play in tournaments this week at all. And if you do play him, I would actually stack him in tournaments. Because again, what we talked about at the beginning, correlation. We're not looking for a good game from Lamar Jackson. All right, you got me 23. Great. You know what? 4 other quarterbacks will get 23 points for cheaper this week. So that will fuck you in a tournament. What wins a tournament is when he scores 38 and no one else comes close. The next closest was 27. And then it's like, wow, I got an extra 11 fantasy points from this guy for the extra 1,000. That is what you want. If that's going to happen, it's going to be because he's throwing. All right, next up, Drew Brees, coming off a bad game. No one wants to play Drew Brees now. He had a bad game. 9 for 20. What the fuck? Oh, 9. How does he lose? Right. He went 32-45. It was just an ugly game. Got sacked a lot. Really ugly. Now he gets Tampa, the cheat code defense. You must have Drew Brees stacks this week, guys. You have to. Not only is Tampa a cheat code for pass catchers, but they're good at stopping the run. So, even Kamara, if he's going to do any damage, it's going to be via the pass as well. Most of the time, this team has done a great job against the run. I don't know what it is, scheme. I don't know what it is that they do that make them good against the run, but they just are. I'm not going to question it. It goes back years. Does it go back years? I don't know. It goes to the beginning of the year. They stopped Christian McCaffrey. Once. So Drew Brees will never be in a better spot than facing Tampa. Obviously, it's a divisional game. There's always sketchiness when it comes to divisional games and weirdness. Weird shit happens in divisional games. Weird shit just happens in football. But, he's in a great spot. Mike Thomas, amazing spot. Guy is a lock for 10 to 12 targets. The beautiful thing about Thomas is 12 targets means he's going to catch like 10 or 11 of them. The guy has an 80% catch rate. It's ridiculous. He's basically as secure of a floor as any running back. And in this game, it really, really is a reasonable game where he could hit that ceiling. The other potential pairings with Drew Brees, obviously, if we can afford it, I don't know if we can. I doubt we can. But if we can afford it, we want to bring it back with an Evans or a Godwin just to play into the whole that game is going bananas thing, or Christian McCaffrey. But again, I don't know how you can afford it. Not McCaffrey. Evans or Godwin. But it's going to be really tough to afford that. You have to give up a Christian McCaffrey to make that work, and probably something else at running back. But yes, you got to love Drew Brees. He's cash viable. I don't love how close he is in price to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson absolutely has a higher ceiling and a much higher floor. But Brees is a great play. Watson, less exciting for me. I think Baltimore defense is good. I know it's not a popular opinion. I get it. I think they're good. Marlon Humphreys, a ridiculously good cornerback. They got Jimmy Smith back. He's also borderline elite. So now they have a tandem of borderline elite corners. Watson has one great pass catcher in DeAndre Hopkins. Not a whole lot else going on in terms of offensive weapons. So I think this Houston team, offensively, not in the best spot. Again, the Statsational model doesn't show a lot of... Where am I? Doesn't show a ton of passing yard. Not terrible, but not a ton. I actually think Baltimore, though, is improving, but it's not showing a ton of passing yardage here. And, the actual odds on this game, while it's going to be a high-scoring game, yeah, here we go. High-scoring game, 51.5 points. Line history, line is going up. Game spread, kind of hanging around. So the biggest positive I see is the consistent increase in the game total. That's a very big positive for this game. So, that's the argument for getting involved with Deshaun Watson. Again, I would rather use the Lamar Jackson side of this game. But if I'm using Deshaun Watson, maybe Kenny Stills, Kiki Kuti, Fuller's definitely out. So Hopkins is going to have Marlon Humphreys in coverage, man. That's a tough situation. So I do actually think that Carlos Hyde is playable here. That's going to be the guy who they're going to lean on. Carlos Hyde could get another 20 target, but which doesn't help Deshaun Watson as much. So that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit, it's going to be a high scoring game. We'll see what happens here, but I'm having a hard time figuring out who I want to use Deshaun Watson with. And if I can't figure out a stack, I just don't want to play it. All right, Dak Prescott. We talked in the beginning of this breakdown about negative correlations. Dak's run of excellence has coincided with Zeke Elliott's sort of run of mediocrity. These two are not positively correlated at all. So if Zeke is running well, Dak probably won't. And this is one of the better matchups that Zeke is going to have. So it's like, is this a sharp play using Dak Prescott? Listen, Dak's great. Again, we saw in the model here, lots of just yardage overall for Dallas, running, passing, everything. It's like a yardage bonanza. But that relies on Detroit hanging in there. I'm not convinced with Jeff Driscoll, the backup quarterback in, that Detroit can hang in there. Now, we said the same thing last week. And we used that as a reason to play David Montgomery. His brother's here in the chat. We used it as a what up, David Montgomery's bro. I see you. So in the end, Montgomery, it didn't come through, but the game script should have come through. You know, Bears kind of dominate a little bit. Driscoll had a good game. But the Bears dominated, and you know, the running back just didn't get the touchdowns. What are you going to do? Sometimes that happens. But my fear with Dak Prescott is if Zeke is taking over this game and he's, you know, you look at the price increase. So FanDuel believes that DraftKings believes that Zeke is going to be the guy here because they raised him from 7,900 to 9K for the matchup. So essentially what we're saying is if Zeke is paying off on this price, 9K, then it's highly unlikely that Dak Prescott is doing much because for Zeke to be worth 9K, that means he's got to score 27 fantasy points. That means 100 yards, probably 2 touchdowns. All right, moving down the list. Garoppolo, not my cup of tea. Josh Allen, playable with John Brown. I don't think Miami's going to be able to stay in it, but Josh Allen has had smash games in his career. Hasn't done it this year, but he's had smash games in his career. And this is like the kind of spot where you want to get a little tournament exposure. In case he runs, he's got 25. I don't think he's got a bad game in him here, but, you know, 25, 17, 17, 21. You know, very playable. A little close in price to guys I like a little more. One of which is Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston. Well, Saints defense is good, but they're missing Marshawn Lattimore. And no matter what Jameis Winston has done this year, he's put up points every single game outside of these first 2 weeks. And of course, one with San Francisco and Carolina. Again, very, very pretty good. New Orleans the last time. Actually, this is a warning. Only 17. This is a home game. Winston can throw out. Did he throw out interceptions? Any interceptions? First one? No. That's surprising. Fumbles? 1. In the write-up, I talked about how Winston is good. On the write-up for Saints defense, I talked about how Winston is good for 1 turnover, 1 or 2 turnovers every game. Like, he's good for that. You could count on it. Doesn't affect his fantasy performances for the most part. So Winston is very playable here. Again, the weirdness of division rivals is a thing, so we pay attention to that. Next up is Matt Ryan, and I really like Matt Ryan. They smashed the Saints last week, but they did a lot with defense. And for the most part, outside of the last 2 weeks, Matt Ryan was a 300-plus yard machine. Now, Carolina, good defense. Where are they? Carolina, good defense. So, you know, Atlanta's not projecting for over 300 yards here, but, I mean, it's pretty close, 275. And if he can cross the 300-yard threshold, it's 12 points. 300 yards for a quarterback, that's 12 points. Throw for a touchdown, 16. 2 touchdowns, 20. So 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, 20 fantasy points. The negative with actually Matt Ryan sometimes sneaks one in for a touchdown, but the negative with non-running quarterbacks is I like quarterbacks that get me like at least 20, 30 yards rushing every single game, just for that extra 4 or 5 fantasy points in the floor. You know, it's a big difference. For some reason, a quarterback, there's a big difference between like 19 and 24. Like I'm happy with a 23 or 24. Not so happy with 19. Back to the sheet. Okay. There are some other quarterbacks that I'm going to mention here, but the final one in the main sort of builds for me is Kyle Allen. And he's basically just the cheapest quarterback that comes off to me as a viable play this week. We like the game total. What the I'm not logged in? Son of a bitch. Hang on. I was logged in. I like the game total. And let's go back to the game total here. And part of my deal with Kyle Allen is, and I'll talk about the pros and the cons. So on the pros, I like the total. 49 points. I don't love that it's coming down. It's not ideal. But I generally like the total. I don't like it's coming down, but I like it. It's coming down. Spread tightening. Interesting. I don't know why it's coming down, to be quite honest. But nonetheless, the game total's coming down a little bit. Okay. But it's still cheap. It's still 49 points. He's still a very cheap quarterback. And the main thing is, if you like Curtis Samuel, if you already like DJ Moore, if you already like Greg Olsen, like everybody does this week, then you might as well just pair it up with their pass catcher, like the quarterback. Everybody likes DJ Moore. He's going to be the chalkiest wide receiver. Everybody likes Curtis Samuel. Doing great. Everybody kind of likes Greg Olsen. Everybody likes Christian McCaffrey. So why not just bring in the quarterback? Now, what's the risk with the Kyle Allen? The risk is that Christian McCaffrey eats up all the scores. McCaffrey's red zone / goal line role is the highest of any player in the National Football League. So his odds of getting us 2 touchdowns is higher than most. No fucking touchdown prop. No touchdown prop. So his odds, I'm checking to see if we can get touchdown props, but they just come out so late. I'll have to get it off of the DraftKings Sportsbook. They have them. So Kyle Allen, the risk here, and you know, if you're trying to play a lineup this week with McCaffrey and Mike Thomas in it, which is very tasty, you almost have to, in cash, you almost have to use someone like Kyle Allen. You got to pay down. Now, I'm going to throw one name in there that you might not have thought about. There's a couple of names that are coming up as like cheapies, right? One is Jeff Driscoll. And the only interest I have in Jeff Driscoll, I don't know what's up with all these redheaded quarterbacks. It's like fucking ginger explosion. They're all gingers. Driscoll, Finley, a lot of young gingers. Driscoll had a pretty good game last week for the Lions. You know, I mean, 60% completion, threw a touchdown, ran a little bit. This was key. 37 rushing yards. This is the difference between 15 meh fantasy points and 19. Oh, okay. Okay. That's cool. Thanks, bud. Fantasy points, right? Like, that's the difference. Jeff Driscoll is playable. You can play a lineup with this guy. But the reason we're doing it is because you're trying to squeeze in the stud. So we'll get to that when we do the value-based lineup construction. But he's playable. Do I want to build my I almost think at this salary that he's cash playable. Why? What do we know about Jeff Driscoll? We don't know shit about this guy. But we don't know anything. But he's going to be throwing a lot. They don't have a running back on this team. There's no one on the roster. There's not a running back on the roster. So unless they're going to score 0. Now, if we believe the odds, and you believe, and again, line going against, but still, our team total here, let's do some quick math. 47 divided by 2. 23.5. Minus 3.5. 20 points. They have a 20-point team total. How are they getting to 20? I mean, this assumes that they're going to get a touchdown in this game. That's the assumption. I mean, if you don't think, let's say we don't think that the Lions will score a touchdown, bet the under. This is a good under to bet anyway, but I like the under on this game. But bet the under. Bet the under if you don't think they can get there. But if they do get there, 47, that's 23.5. They have 3.5 points. They're giving them a 20-point game total. That means 2 touchdowns. There's no running back on the team. They don't have one on the roster. J.D. McKissick? He's really a pass catcher, isn't he? Like, he's not really a running back. He's a pass catcher. Ty Johnson? Come on. So they're going to throw. They're going to throw a lot. Buffo on the beat likes Driscoll to Hawkinson. It could work. You know why? Because when you start with that, I can put these 2 studs in my lineup. Still have 4K left. So it's a doable scenario. Now I've got 5,000 left for running back, 2 wide receivers. There's enough value here to make a lineup like this work. I'm going to do it. You know, there's enough value there floating around. But let's go through the wide receiver. I don't want to build lineups yet. I want to build the anticipation. Let's leave the lineups out of it. Leave the wide receivers because we're moving on to the wide receiver position. So that's it for the quarterback position. The other name that I've heard mentioned is actually Ryan Finley. Not my cup of tea. Same with like Dwayne Haskins. Not my cup of tea. I'm not into it. Ryan Finley, not into it. He's a ginger, I know. Love gingers, but not into it. Not today. Not this year. Like, who the fuck is Ryan Finley? He's not even a quarterback who was drafted like early. He was a mid-round pick. I don't know what's going on with that, but they just figure, hey, our season's lost. Let's see what we have. You know, Dalton is not the future. Okay, good for you. I think Dalton will float around the league for the next few years as a really, really premium backup. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position. This is where all these positions are where the monies are made, guys. So at wide receiver, running back first. We'll go in the order of the Geeks pick sheet. Running back first. Christian McCaffrey, 10.5K. Very difficult to afford on DraftKings. It's core play, going to be high owned. Good reason. It's interesting that Dalvin Cook will be a little higher owned than him. He's a lot cheaper. And Dalvin Cook projects not that different from Christian McCaffrey. By the way, Dalvin Cook has not been that wildly different from Christian McCaffrey all season. A little different, but not like crazy. McCaffrey, 32. Cook, 25.6. You know, it's not crazy. 32 is such a high number, though. So you really want this guy in your cash game. Ideally, you kind of want him in tournaments a little bit, but not loaded up. You don't need to have Christian McCaffrey in every tournament lineup. It hampers you playing him. I love him. But last week I gave you permission. I said, guys, you don't have to play Christian McCaffrey. I didn't say don't play Christian McCaffrey, to be clear. I didn't say fade Christian McCaffrey. Hell no. I give you permission. If you don't want to, you don't have to play him. Now, the reason I said that was because, again, at 10.5K, unless he's putting up 45 fantasy points, which he could, but unless he gets there, all right, what do you get you? 30? For that price? Think about it. Can I pick 2 5K players that combined can get me to 30? Like, you have to figure out the math in your head. If I play this guy at 10.5, that's 2 5,200 salary players. So can I pick 2 that can combine to score as much as this one guy or more? So is there like a 20-point guy that I can get for, 5,200 or 4,600? Now, I guarantee you that there is that combination in tournaments. Guarantee it. That means GPPs, that it will exist. When I say tournaments, I mean like if I'm making 50 lineups and I'm mix and match, there will be a combination that exists for the same product that crushes how many points Christian McCaffrey puts up. So in order to win the tournament, I need perfection. So the only way I'm really winning a tournament with Christian McCaffrey is if he does go for 40 plus. If he's in your lineup and he gets you 29, you're probably not winning a tournament with that. Probably not. I mean, the rest of your lineup would have to be amazing. You'd have to nail so many cheapies. It's unlikely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unlikely. All right. Zeke Elliott hasn't been that good. He's in a great matchup, as great as it could be on paper. Hasn't been that good recently. I'm calling it tournament only. I can't trust Zeke. He's not getting more than 20 fantasy points a game, 26, 27 max. The touches aren't there. The explosiveness isn't there. I've seen some horrible statistics on him that, technically he's one of the worst running backs from a breaking tackles and breakaway speed point of view in the entire NFL. It's not looking good for Zeke right now. It could turn around. I don't think talent is that important at running back, and I don't know where his talent could have gone, why he's not breaking tackles, why he has no explosiveness. I don't know. $22 touches, 23. This was a good one against the Jets, but it took 34 touches for him to get there. But then you have these games 12-2, 18-6. So, even last week at Minnesota, even with 22 touches, only 8 fantasy points. Here, 23, only runs, 16 points. Just, the ceiling of 28, 29 for 9, 18, 27, 36. He's topped out. In a perfect game, he'll get you 3x. I don't like it. Dalvin Cook, same price as Zeke. Not as great of a matchup, even though on paper it looks like it's not that bad. But Dalvin Cook's been much more consistent, at least, in getting close to 30 points. But still, it's a lot of pay up. But I do think Cook, he's going to get you 25 plus, or he usually will. McCaffrey should get you to 30. I think Zeke is good for 20. I kind of agree with the projections for the most part here. Cook a little bit better than Zeke, and McCaffrey significantly better than both, but also priced at a premium. Moving down the list, Fournette, playable. He's got to get a touchdown. I don't like the price, $7,900 for him. He's usually good for about 20 fantasy points. And again, it's another projection I kind of agree with. I probably won't have very much Fournette on DraftKings. I like him a little better on FanDuel. He's a lot cheaper, relatively speaking, on FanDuel. And if he can get touchdowns this week, and then he'll smash value. So he's a tournament play. He's interesting, better on FanDuel. A lot of these guys are better on FanDuel because FanDuel's just generally cheaper this week. Clear this lineup, and I'll show you. There's so much more affordability going on FanDuel. At the running back position, it's important to note that, Cook, Zeke, Jacobs, all about the same price. Jacobs, same price as these other two. So I want to play Jacobs in a great spot, period. But I want to play him a little more on DraftKings, I think. But, he's in a great spot. So let's get to him. But first, Alvin Kamara. Number 1 fantasy defense for the Bucks. Number 1 fantasy defense for... Should I make the screen bigger? All right. You don't need to see me. Kamara not doing a whole lot. I think Kamara could break out, but it's GPP only. This ownership is crazy. If he's going to be 20%, I get it. You know, he's Kamara. He can do a lot of things, and he's cheap. Look, he's much cheaper. A lot of weeks you'll see Kamara priced about the same as these two. Now he's significantly cheaper. So that opens the eyes. That opens the eyes a little bit for Alvin Kamara. I'm a little concerned. 10 targets, 8 receptions, great. So you're getting basically stud level wide receiver touches, but not a lot of rushing action for him. And let's look at the vulture. Didn't get as much action last week as I thought. So it wasn't so much that Murray was out there vulturing. It was more that just the game was weird, and I don't know what the fuck happened. The Saints just sucked last week, and everybody sucked around him. But this is interesting. Murray does not project well at all against this Bucs defense. Lats Murray, it's a bad spot for him in his style. This would project better for throwing passes to Alvin Kamara. So if the Saints come in with a sharp game plan, it's going to be throwing to Kamara. GPP only for me. I really like these other guys better, but if you give me 8 to 10 targets, a couple of rushes up the middle, I don't care about these. I just want the targets. I want him to score a touchdown, 21 points, 7,500, 714, 21, 28. He can get you there. He can get you to 4X. It's not that hard. We've seen Kamara smash, 25, 35 points. He operates like a wide receiver. So he's got a lot of upside, a great GPP play. Probably not where I'm going in cash games, but a great tournament play. Moving down the list. This is the guy that everybody's interested in this week. He'll be the highest owned running back, probably on the entire slate. He doesn't carry an injury designation, so I'm not worried about whatever the shoulder issue was. Anybody can get hurt in game, but when the Raiders are expected to lead, they're going to lean on the running back. This is what they want. I like that the targets have increased a little bit. He's still not going to get you a whole lot via the pass. And if he does not score touchdowns and cross the 120-yard threshold, it's going to be a disappointment. Let's look at his best game. If you need a reason to not play Josh Jacobs, this is it. In his best game, he got you 120 yards, 2 touchdowns, still only got to 27. Now, you might be like, hey, why the fuck is this guy chalk? Because Cincinnati is like a worse opponent even than the Lions were. But we have to bear in mind, this is why receptions are so key. This is 6 points. You add that onto here, you're talking a 33-point explosion. 2 touchdowns. We can't expect 2 touchdowns. I'll get to Mixon, but King David's asking about Mixon. I'm not a big Mixon guy. And I want my running backs on games where they're favored, not where they're 10-point underdogs. So I don't like that situation, and he's too expensive for my taste. Tevin Coleman, don't expect him to get more than he normally does. That's all I got to say. 10, 15 touches, could smash with them. Couple of targets, great. Somebody I like more on FanDuel, definitely, than I do on DraftKings. He's a little cheaper. Not that much, but he's a little cheaper. But if he doesn't get in the end zone like twice or, at least once or twice, he's going to have trouble. So tournament only, GPP. Kenyon Drake last time they faced Kenyon. All right, let's just talk. The Arizona running game. You can run on the 49ers. We've discovered this, right? You can run on them. We've seen it. We're about to get to the most controversial one of all, so I'm going to take my time with this one. But you can run on the 49ers apparently. Kenyon Drake smashed them the last game out. More importantly, when you watch Drake and David Johnson, something's off. That dude he looks like me out there. Like he's got dad running. He's got like dad bod, or he's running like a dad. He's got New Balance sneakers going. He's wearing low top sneakers with kind of high socks and khaki shorts. He's got a polo shirt on. He's out like grilling, making steaks. He runs like a dad. I don't know what the fuck happened to David Johnson. I saw some clips. Like, he's just slow. I don't know what's going on with that dude. Could have been a one-game thing. I think maybe he's trying to play hurt because he feels like, this young buck is there trying to take his job. I don't know. You wouldn't want to see me running with my Saucony low top white mesh sneakers, socks that are like way too high up my ankle, khakis, shorts. That's what I look like when I'm grilling in the summertime. Got my khakis on. Then my kids are like, "You look like a dad." I'm like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about? This is how I always dress." They're like, "Yeah, you look like such a dad." I don't know. Apparently, you're not supposed to wear white sneakers with high socks. I don't fucking know. But David Johnson was out there looking like me. The fuck's he doing? He looks bad. So Kenyon Drake, the fresher, younger guy, he catches passes. He has a role. Catches passes. But do I want to pay over $5K for a running back going up against a 49? Probably not. But I'm starting him in my fantasy leagues because I ain't got anybody else. I got to start him. But I don't think I like it. I don't think I love it. But he's playable. Look at what he did. He rushed. It wasn't even passing. He dominated. Could happen again. And we're already playing Arizona defense. So if you want to play, this is what I say about being creative. When you're building your lineups, make one with this guy. You're going to use Arizona defense. You know what? I'm going to pair up Arizona defense with Kenyon Drizzy. Throw in a little Drizzy in the background when you're making that lineup. You're like, Kiki, but you like me. And then you get like Kenyon Drake in there. You know what I'm saying? You're like, hell yeah, Drizzy. You got that shit. He's playable. You can play him. Everybody's going to be on Brian Hill. So let's get to the main controversial player. The highest owned. Let's bring it up on the Dom station so we can live time see what his projection is and what his ownership projection is. Now let's start with the fantasy points per dollar rating. Okay? He's got a 60, and now I'm gonna smash the rating here. This is why. All right. This is a false number. That's false. The actual ownership projection, the correct one for Brian Hill, is going to be more like 35%. So now you're going to get. Did I hit refresh project? What the fuck? Let me see something. You know what? Give me a second. Because I feel like this number should have changed. So let's pull that back up fresh and see if that number changed. But my point is, Hill's going to be the highest owned guy. Now, here's my argument against. There's an argument for, and there's an argument against. The pro, I'm still there at that projection. I don't fucking know. The pro argument is, hey, Brian Hill, he got 20 carries last week for Atlanta. Didn't do much with him, but he got 20 carries. That's amazing. Good for him. Well, if you remember last week, Atlanta was smashing. It was one of those weird games where Atlanta was smashing the Saints. It was a weird game defensively. He also caught a pass for a touchdown. So everybody is going to play Brian Hill. Everybody wants to play Brian Hill. But I have a negative that I can say. So let's say he's going to be 35, 40% owned in tournaments. It makes sense. He got 20 carries last week, got a target, great. But last week, he also split carries pretty much like the way the Falcons like to do with Kenjon Barner. So Kenjon Barner was in there for the passing plays, whereas Brian Hill was basically in there only for running plays. Hill never known as a pass catcher. So there is risk here that they are not going to throw to him very much. It's possible they do, and the matchup is very positive. Carolina, much better team against the pass than against the run. So you should attack the Panthers via the run most of the time. But there's risk with Brian Hill. If they don't use him in passing game, I never liked Devonta Freeman, and I'm going to show you something. I don't like Devonta Freeman. He's not that much cheaper than what Freeman is. Like if Freeman was playing this game, they priced it at $5,900. What the fuck has this guy done all year to make you really want to play? All of his damage was via the pass. Look at the running totals. He had one decent game against Arizona. Okay, good for you. Had a great game. But most of the time, 19 yards, 88. Okay, that's good. 28, 30, 88. Okay, that's nice. 19 and 39. So the fear that I have is, listen, this Falcons offense has not produced great performances from the running back position all season. That's one. Number two. I'm saying two over now. I forgot what the fuck number two was. Number two. They're still going to mix in the backup running back. If it's Kenjon Barner, if it's Quandre Olofsson, they're saying they're all going to have a role. I don't believe that they're just going to give Brian Hill 25 touches. They don't give Devonta Freeman 25 touches. They don't give anybody 25 touches. And this seems like a guy that needs a lot of touches to make value. So while I do think that Hill is a pretty good shot to get you back to 10 fantasy points, 10 or 12, get a bunch of 60 yards, get carries, and he'll get a couple of receptions, not do much with them, and he can get to 20. He can get you 10 points. But for $5K, if he's going to be 40% owned, and the most likely scenario is a 2x performance, I'm okay with not using him. That's what I was going with. Like, he seems like he should be the cash punt. This could be the spot to get cute. Now, I don't like getting cute. I don't advise getting cute most of the time. But this is one of those spots where you could say, you know what, if I can find an alternative to this player, then maybe I can get that little one spot of unique differentiation that my opponent will play this guy. And, like I said, the Geek said that Atlanta running backs kind of fucking suck all the time. And they do, especially if they're not catching passes. That's the whole thing. So we don't know enough about Hill and about his passing game work and his role to justify a 40% ownership in a game where his team is the underdog. They are not favored. They are the underdog. Now I'm going to get to a question. Jonathan Kleindowski asks if I have any love for Ingram. Not really. The answer is no. Now, you could play Ingram in a Bobby Wow contrarian, everybody's going to play Lamar Jackson way. And so I'm going to throw Mark Ingram in my lineup. But my issue with Mark Ingram is he does not get enough volume in this offense to make 15. Look at the carries, barely any targets, 9 to 13 carries. It's not for me. Does it not mean, even when he scored his 3 touchdowns, against KC, he only had 16 carries doing it. I mean, he went bananas, but it took a terrible run defense to get you there. Houston isn't that terrible, so it's a no for me. And King David, man, I hope you're not like the jinx after your brother fucked me over last week. But moving down the list, there's a couple of cheapies that we like. Okay. Now, where the fuck? Damn it. I had Kenya. All right. Add J.D. McKissick in here. That was when it was thought that Ty Johnson was going to be out. Now Ty Johnson is back. He's going to play. Don't like J.D. McKissick very much anymore. He'll still get some passes, but not enough value. And the same issue that I see with Hill in terms of a team that just doesn't produce a lot of fantasy points to the running back position. That's not how their offense works. There's a lot of that going on with Detroit too. Detroit just never produces well to the running back. So it's like, do I really need to force this guy in? He'll get a couple of catches. He seems like a decent floor, 7, 8, 9 fantasy points, but I'm not sure there's a whole lot of ceiling there. The guy I like a lot is Miles Sanders. That's why I put King David Montgomery's thingy up on the screen here. Miles Sanders. Now, Jordan Howard has not practiced all week, people. Listen, we're all excited. Let me explain this. We're all excited to play Brian Hill, guy we never heard of. No real pedigree. They don't throw to him very often on a team that doesn't produce points to the running back. That's cool. That's cool. Okay. That's cool. If Miles Sanders is getting the full workload for an Eagles team, that's missing Alshon Jeffrey. There's no Deshaun Jackson there. The Patriots, they stop the run. They stop the pass completely. That's the kind of team they are. Statsational model says Eagles should at least have some success running the football. He's 4.1K. Buffo says Peterson loves Sanders. That's important. Love. I love Sanders. I drafted him in my Dynasty fucking league. There's no Sproles. That's right. I'm married to Sanders. I drafted him in the first round. I need him to turn into a stud. So basically, what's going to happen in this game? Are they gonna just be terrible? Well, let's see. Again, Patriots, very good defense. Maybe we should avoid it. But 44 points, 4-point spread. That means, again, we've got an Eagles team projected to score 20 fantasy points. Now, they could kick a bunch of field goals. I don't think Aguilar is catching touchdowns against, Devin McCourty. Are you cheating on me, Browns? That's what's happening right here. This is what that feels like. This is what it feels like when you cheated on me. It's a hurt. It's a hurt. Hurts me. You just hurt me. So there 20 points, right? Where are the points coming from? I'm going to throw one to Goddard, probably. Or Ertz, maybe. I know it, man. I know you can't quit me. I know it. Once you have a tattoo, you're fucking Army for life. I know it. I'm actually upset that Smiz is touting this dude. It's upsetting me because I want it to be a secret. Like, what the fuck? Who the hell told Smiz about Miles Sanders? The Colonel. That's my fucking play. He's on. Damn it. But I like him. If Jordan Howard is out, you know what tipped me off to it? When they signed Jay Ajayi, I'm like, what the fuck is going on with Jordan Howard? Why are they signing, like this guy, who's like a broken version of Jordan Howard? Because Howard's out. Okay, probably. So we're going to play Miles Sanders. I like that play. It saves me a couple of bucks. My goodness, this one's going to be a long one, guys. Tell your wives and your kids you need another hour. Let them know. Need another hour. So Miles Sanders, I love it. I think he's cash viable. If you look at the sheet, I have him listed as an all play already, 3-star. Just as good as Hill, a little cheaper. His passing game work is higher. Look at this guy. This is what I like about him. He gets targets. Now, he's been targeted all year. Has it been enough? No. Why is it just 3? I don't know. I'd rather be 6 or 5. But he does get some passing game work. He's had some big weeks. He's explosive. He's a very talented player. My man, Season Long Says, who is the Season Long specialist for DFS Army, and he's the fucking GOAT. He knows everything about every player. He watches college football. He studies these. He's already telling me about 2022 prospects. That dude is the best. In DFS Army Slack, go to the Season Long channel. Ask some questions. But Season Long said that Sanders was King David Montgomery. This is not going to feel good to you. You're not going to be happy. Close your ears. But Season Long says that Miles Sanders was the best and most talented running back that came out of the draft this year. It wasn't Josh Jacobs. It wasn't King David's brother, David Montgomery. It was Miles Sanders. So a lot of talent going on here. And according to our Statsational model, again, 120 yards to go around for this Eagles rush defense, rushing offense. The Vegas odds say they're going to score 20 points. Where are they going to come from? If Miles Sanders can get a touchdown, he's going to smash what Brian Hill brings. That will give us the edge in cash games against people who play Hill. Now, there's an argument to be made to play Hill and Miles Sanders and like a Josh Jacobs, and then you could spend up elsewhere. That's the creativity that we're going to do. Oh, my God. I'm not even putting that on the screen, King David Montgomery. I'm not even putting that on the screen. But that is part of the creativity when we're building the lineups bottom up later. You could see, can I put Christian McCaffrey? Well, what if I go 2 cheap running backs? Oh, how does that look? What if I put Kenyon Drake and Hill together and did a hybrid? Now, we don't want to do that in cash, but in a hybrid lineup. Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders. Well, that's 2 pretty cheap guys. Josh Jacobs. Oh, my God. You didn't pay up at all? No, because I got Mike Thomas, I got Godwin, I got Evans, I got everybody else I wanted in that lineup. So that's the creativity. That's the artistry of lineup construction. I see myself on screen. Look at where am I? That's the artistry. Lots of different ways of building these lineups. So let's continue. Where the fuck are we? Kalen Ballage, last on the list. We didn't even make the Geeks pick sheet. I have to mention Kalen Ballage, guys. He's going to get a fucking shitload of touches. And he's another guy. I love cheap running backs. Buffalo is a team you can attack via the run. Miami has no one else. 20 carries, 4 receptions. What did he do last week? This is amazing. The guy managed to get 25 touches and do nothing. He's so talentless. It's actually shocking. It's disturbing. How did he get onto the National Football League? Look at this just ineptitude. So I'm not putting my entry in the King of the Beach that I worked so hard to earn. I'm not risking it on this motherfucker. But I got to tell you about him, because how do I not talk about a guy who got 20 carries, 4 targets, 4 receptions? Somehow he only managed 8 fantasy points, but that volume is crazy. And now the matchup is a little bit better at home. Taking on the Bills. They're attackable via the run. So you have to mention it. If you guys want to play Kalen Ballage, I'm not against it. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to make fun of you in chat or in the DFS Army Slack. You ask me a question. I'm not going to make fun of it. I'm like, all right, you want to do that? All right. Don't pair him up with Fitzpatrick. That's not good correlation. If you pair him up with Fitzpatrick, I don't like it. But if you want to play him, okay. You say, well, is he a bad player? I don't fucking know. I think he sucks as a player. But he's going to get a lot of volume and he's cheap. Okay, do that. All right, let's go on and talk about wide receivers. Lots to talk about. Smaller group of wide receivers this week on the Geeks pick sheet than I normally have. And when you read, I hope you guys already understand how to read these fucking sheets. It's week 11. But core plays, cash, tournaments, whatever you want. GPP means tournament only. Really, not the guys that I'm going to have in my cash lineup, right? That's it. That's simple. Probably won't use them in my cash lineup. Various reasons. What I'm doing when I'm picking out core plays, all plays who are also cash, all plays are cash and tournament value. I never put cash only. But technically, if you want to understand what a cash only play is, just look at the ownership. I would borderline completely fade DJ Moore in tournaments just because he's going to be 21% owned. Like if you see a high number ownership, it's borderline complete fadeable. There's only one guy that's popping that way. Although I do think that we might get wow, I'm shocked at some of these as how low they are. So we'll see if those numbers change. But I do think Deebo Samuel can pop up to that level as well. But that's how the sheet works. So let me make it bigger here. So the sheet works essentially where confidence rating, what type of play? Core play, this guy can be played everywhere. Michael Thomas, he's good for 12 targets. This is a pace-up spot for Michael Thomas. I'm afraid he could put up 40 points. This is how much I love you guys. I played some MMA. I wanted to keep churning out lineups. I'll tell you right now, but we're talking football. Good luck to everybody who played MMA, though. I took a look, and I looked at the staff picks. Marley's picks I was very in agreement with them. Sniper's picks, not so much. So we'll see which one was right. I usually agree with Eric's picks. Didn't love Sniper's picks this week. We'll see. We'll see. It's a volatile sport. All right, get back into it. Michael Thomas, a guy who's putting up 30 points a game, and now he's finally in a smash spot. Leave it to that to leave at this point, but it's almost a cannot fail situation. He's going to get you 10 to 12 targets. I love Michael Thomas. They have no one else to throw to. Tampa can't stop him. Amari Cooper. Let's see what Michael Thomas did the last time these two teams. I just want to see. I want to see what his salary was. Oh. Look, this was when we went all in on Michael Thomas. Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember the only time, maybe all year, that I ever made an all... I don't do all-in calls on wide receiver. I don't. We were all in core, 100% Michael Thomas. That was my best week of the season so far. Because the gift of Michael Thomas. Like what a beautiful gift it was. Put up 44 fantasy points. We should expect more of the same. There's no reason that Michael Thomas shouldn't get 44 points. Alex is asking about do I have to eat the chalk with Jacobs in tournaments? I don't think you have to eat chalk in tournaments ever. Ever. But if you're going to eat it, it should be on a cheap running back in a great spot. Like Latavius Murray that week when we went all in. Or like Jalen Samuels that week when we went all in. King David, were you with us in week 5? Like, I don't know. Were you part of DFS Army? Are you part? I don't know. Some people sneak into this live cast. If you were with us in week 5, you would have been all in on Michael Thomas like I was. And I never say that. I never tell people to go all in on a wide receiver. Now, this week again, we could go all in on Michael Thomas if we can afford him. He has 44-point upside. He did it in this game before. All right. What more can I say about Michael Thomas? The question is, can he score more points than Christian McCaffrey? I don't know. Here's an argument for Michael Thomas over Christian McCaffrey. And the argument is, I feel like if I pay down at wide receiver, it's much sketchier, right? But I feel like at running back, I can get floor for cheaper. Like at wide receiver, the lower I go, the sketchier the plays become. But at running back, I can usually find good running backs for cheaper. We already talked about Miles Sanders. There are some others, although this week really doesn't have a ton of that. But I mean, again, it's Brian Hill and some of these others that we talked about. I guess Kenyon Drake, Tevin Coleman, certainly Josh Jacobs there. Certainly someone like Leonard Fournette is viable. We could pay down to Dalvin Cook, and he's in a good spot. So there are places where I can get off of that. I don't think there's no other wide receiver that even comes close to, the floor ceiling combination that Michael Thomas has. He basically, you put him in your lineup, 30 points. We'll talk about this when we construct the lineup. But David, it was your best week. It was my best week too. That's usually how it goes. We all have success together. But last week was my worst week because of David Montgomery. Fucker. No one gives us the higher floor ceiling, even running backs, compared to Michael Thomas. I put Christian McCaffrey in the same mix, but Thomas is ridiculous here. Again, the matchup is ridiculous. I don't know what more. I'm tempted to use Michael Thomas in my cash lineup and forego Christian McCaffrey. I really want both. But if you put both, you have to get rid of Lamar Jackson. Choices. All right, moving down the list. Amari Cooper, been great this season. I mentioned my reservations about Dallas passing. The model shows they're going to crush. I like it in tournaments, but I do have fear that if Detroit just can't compete in this game, then it's going to be for naught. So I actually like Cooper stacked maybe with a Jeff Driscoll, based around this game. No Zeke in that stack, assuming that the Lions can somehow keep this game close. Mike Evans, I love. There's no Marshawn Lattimore this week. Can't really stack this game that well because salaries just don't really just allow for that. Like, you get Mike Thomas and Mike Evans in the lineup together again. You don't have any salary left for a whole lot of anything else, but love Mike Evans. Just as much ceiling as anyone. There's no player with a higher ceiling, including Michael Thomas. His floor is lower, but no Marshawn Lattimore is a very good thing for him. Chris Godwin will be lower owned than Mike Evans. Both of these guys can smash at any time. I love them both. Evans, now with no Marshawn Lattimore, I'm going to lead a little bit more towards Evans. Michael Gallup, same shit as Amari Cooper. Gallup will excel in games where Dak Prescott has to throw a lot and he will smash. I love it, but he's priced way up for this matchup. I don't like that. DJ Moore will be the chalkiest wide receiver on the entire slate. The matchup is spectacular for him. He's not catching a lot of touchdowns, but he's running deep patterns now. Atlanta been terrible against the pass all season. Better against the run. Terrible against the pass. If you're going to play DJ Moore in a tournament, I would stack him with either Matt Ryan or Kyle Allen in some sort of a game stack and make sure that lineup did not really have Christian McCaffrey. I don't want Christian McCaffrey in it with the pass catchers from Carolina in tournaments because McCaffrey will either suck up all of the touchdowns and make value that way, or he won't, in which case it will be wide receivers sucking up some of these touchdowns and McCaffrey gets just one. He'll still do fine. But if McCaffrey's getting 45, 49 fantasy points, it will definitely come at the expense of these other players. There's only so many fantasy points to go around. Jameson Crowder, got 1 star. GPP only. Marquise Brown, I like. What upsets me about Brown is 4 targets, 3 targets. If I could project 8 targets for him, I would be all in on him. But I think he only gets 4, or he's only been getting 4. That's troubling. He does a lot with it. He's got that Q tag. He's always a little hurt. Look, he does a lot with just 4 targets. Like, this guy is explosive. But, I mean, he gets you a lot of crap along the way. So I like him. I like him stacked with Jackson. Sure, I like that, but I'm not really going to use him solo. Jonathan wants to jump to tight end. Give me a second, my man. Give me a minute. We're getting to that. Okay. Where am I? Calvin Ridley. One of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Now, normally, I don't love Calvin Ridley, but he's been really fairly consistent. Listen, he hasn't smashed, but he's getting you the 19s, the 13s, 6 or 7 targets. Now his team doesn't have Sanu. It doesn't have Austin Hooper. That's a big loss. Hooper was getting 7 to 9 targets. I think the Sanu targets just slide over to Russell Gage for the most part, but it's the Hooper targets that I'm interested in. Now, if just a third of those, so if he's getting 10 targets a game, I don't know that takes Ridley. Now, again, it's a plus matchup for wide receivers in general. Not as great as Tampa, but Carolina's missing their top corner. So the next best guy slides over to Julio, which puts an even worse guy on Calvin Ridley. So that's the sort of the domino effect of losing your best player to Bradbury. Our ownership numbers are based on, so when you're seeing ownerships over here, they're based on tournaments, milli makers or otherwise. Tournaments, not cash games. That's the difference. Single entry, 3 entry max, those are all GPP tournaments. Ownerships don't really change much from one to the next. Actually, what affects ownership more is how much money it costs to enter the contest. So like a $150 contest will be much more chalky, people on sharper plays, whereas a $3 entry contest, people are dicking around with names you never heard of. That's when somebody who you never heard of goes off and you're like, how come somebody used him? And because they're like, I don't care. It's a $3 lineup. I just fucking threw crazy shit on it. Alex is asking about Debo with Hollywood. No, we want correlation. Debo has no correlation to Lamar Jackson. Hollywood Brown does. So we want our quarterback paired up in correlated lineups. The questionable train your brain not to see that shit. Train it. Train your brain not to see the Q tag. Train your brain not to see these numbers, these little red and green. Train your brain not to look at it because everybody else sees the same shit as you do. Calvin Ridley has had explosive games before, but it's almost always because he catches multiple touchdowns. He hasn't had the big yardage games very frequently, but again, in a high-scoring game, it could happen. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Tell that to your wives too. Can do better. All right, and your boyfriends. I don't care. I don't judge. All right, one of my favorite plays. Curtis Samuel, still good. We like this Carolina game. All good. Fine. Everybody's going to be on, in tournaments, everybody's going to be on DJ Moore. You can pivot to Curtis Samuel. You mentioned Julio. Did I forget to put Julio in here? Julio's definitely playable. And absolutely love Russell Gage. So Julio's playable as well now that Bradbury's out. Carolina won't have anybody to cover him. Originally, I didn't like him because I figured Bradbury would cover him and all the passes would go to Ridley in a sort of Bradbury effect. Now, Julio will get his. He's going to get he going to get his, right? He's going to get his. I love Russell Gage. If we're going to just continue with this game real quick, I love Russell Gage out of this game as the third option. Look at this guy, all right? Gage is the ultimate. He's taken over the Sanu role. Does he have high upside? No. But again, Hooper's gone. He's getting the Sanu targets. Last week he got 5 targets. The week before he got 9 targets. Doesn't do a lot with it. But at 3,300, if we're trying to squeeze, McCaffrey, Michael Thomas into our lineup together, this is the guy that's going to help make it possible. Buffalo says, yes, if Julio at 7,400 scores 30, he probably will be in the optimal. Unlike someone like Michael Thomas at 9,900, a full 2,500 more. He needs really to get to 4K plus to be in the optimal lineup. Julio, he's good for if he gets you to 30, you're good to go. And there is a great chance of Julio getting us to 30 fantasy points here. Where am I? Okay. One of my favorite plays on the entire slate, Mohamed Sanu, Mo Sanu. Sanu, a guy I never liked before, but in this Patriots offense, 14 targets. Are you fucking kidding me? 14 targets? Who else are they going to throw to? Dorsett, Edelman, they have no tight end that they throw to. Throw to Jimmy White. Okay. Eagles tend to be pretty good against the run, especially a running back like Sony Michel. Not going to dominate the Eagles most of the time. No, somebody's asking me if I think we're chasing. I think it's the opposite. I think Sanu probably more of a 6K player. If he's going to get 8 to 10 targets in the Patriots offense, and that's going to be a consistent thing, then he's going to be more of a 6K, 6,500. So at 5,100, I think he's still underpriced. We don't know that he'll do that again, but they didn't trade a second round pick for this guy because they think he sucks. They had an idea in mind, and, who are we to question the great genius that is Bill Belichick? Like, he showed us what he's going to do. He wants to throw to this guy a lot. Okay. I'm not gonna argue with him. He's smarter than me. I'm just gonna be like, all right. So I like Sanu. I like Sanu there. Where was I? Fitzgerald, no. Robbie Anderson, GPP only. Cole Beasley, a little expensive here, but I think he can get you there. A lot of people are touting up Devontae Parker. The projections like him. I don't love the matchup at all. I can't remember I always forget the name of the elite corner from the Bills, Tre'Davious Smith or something, but there's an elite corner that will be on Devontae Parker. He'll probably get 8 to 10 targets anyway, but I think, something like this or worse is probably what we can be looking for, a 10-point type of game max. Kenny Stills, fine if you're into this kind of player. He has big upside, no Will Fuller this week. So, Kenny Stills will be out there. We know that Marlon Humphrey is going to be on DeAndre Hopkins, which leaves probably Jimmy Smith on Kenny Stills. Still good coverage. Not a great situation, but, it's better than Humphreys. One guy I really like a lot, Dede Westbrook. Dede Westbrook, man. 9 targets, 11, 8 targets, 9 targets. Like he's very much involved in this Jaguars offense. So, I mean, they're at the Colts. The Colts are kind of a slow it down, not too exciting team, but they also play zone. And zone defense, the crosser, and Dede Westbrook kind of plays out of the slot. He crossing patterns. That zone defense should favor a wide receiver out of the slot. What the zone does is it protects against the run, but also safeties over top. That's how the zone works. Safeties over to Tre'Davious White. There you go. I don't love Kiki. No. Safeties over top. That opens up the middle of the field for the slot receiver. It helps tight ends also. That style of play. Sometimes you bring a safety down into the box when you have the zone. Either way, the middle of the field opens up a little bit, so it could favor Dede Westbrook. We haven't seen Nick Foles back. We don't know if he's rusty. Or what? What I do like is it appears as though this game against the Jets, it wasn't because like, hey, we don't like D.D. Westbrook anymore. It's because he was hurt. Now, he was hurt. He came out of the game. He only was in for a few snaps. So now it's been 9, 10, 11. It's been about 3 weeks since that injury. They had a bye week. He had a lot of time to heal up, I hope. He's not a smasher, but D.D. Westbrook's a good player. You could argue that he's the number one wide receiver for the Jaguars, and he's 4,500. He's not going to be on the radar. Everybody's going down to Deebo Samuel. Fine, that's cool, but sometimes why not play both? You could play Gage. So there's a few different ways to approach this. But I like Derek Westbrook. Let's continue down the list. I like D.D. Westbrook. I do. I like him. Kiki. Maybe I do like Kiki. I don't know. What's wrong with Kiki? I don't know. You could play him. Kiki. You know what, Buffo? I'm okay with Kiki. I'm not going to do the Kiki dance. I'm not going to play the Kiki song. But I'm okay with Kiki. Didi and Kiki. What if you make a lineup with Didi and Kiki? Very unique. Gotta find some other players with similar sounding names. But, you know, it's a very unique approach. Let's see if you could fit all the studs. Check this out. You know which stud we didn't fit? A good quarterback. But you can get Kyle Allen. That's a lineup. That's a lineup. I don't mind it. I'm playing it. So let's go back to this here. It's Marius Thomas. Just a high floor guy. Russell Gage, we already talked about him. Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne. This is the other two. Deebo Samuel will be chalk this week. Everybody's on Deebo. Coming off of 11 targets last week. Now let's bring that one back. Deebo Samuel. See in here? That's my bike, punk. Love it. What's his actual name? D-E-E. Okay, no wonder I can never spell it. Every time I try to spell his name, it doesn't pop up. That's my bike, punk. 11 targets, 8 receptions. The matchup, Patrick Peterson, not the best on paper, but I don't think it really matters that much. That guy hasn't been that great, but it is worth noting. If Emmanuel Sanders comes back, maybe the matchup is better. I don't know. Manny Sanders might play. He might not. He says he's going to play. We're not going to know. We're not going to know. This is not a high-volume offense, and it's very possible they just lean on the run in this game. They've done it before. They'll do it again. There's no doubt about that they will and can and will do that. So just keep that in mind. Fuck, this is going long. Kendrick Bourne is the other guy. So they don't have Kittle. They don't have probably Emmanuel Sanders. Now, if Emmanuel Sanders plays, he plays. That's it. But no Emmanuel Sanders, no Kittle. You think Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne will be the guys. It's not going to be Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis is questionable tag, and he fucking sucks. So Bourne is interesting. Now, what is the game scenario that plays out where these guys are doing a lot of work? It's if Arizona is scoring as well. Who is the best piece on Arizona to do some damage here? Kenyon Drake. So if I'm making a tournament lineup, I want to get one of these two guys, maybe Bourne, maybe Kenyon Drake in it. Again, we're building, every time you build a lineup, you want to think about every player and what will cause them to have a special game. So what will cause Kendrick Bourne / Deebo Samuel to have a great game? It's if Arizona's kind of limiting the running game for the 49ers. So we don't really want Tevin Coleman or Raheem Mostert in there. And B, if Arizona is scoring, which tells us that we may want Kenyon Drake in the lineup. Build a tournament lineup like that. Secondary stack. That's how it's done. Okay. Wow. All right, that's going to do it for the wide receiver position. We'll go through tight end and defense real quick, and then I want to get to some lineup builds. If you're still with us, great. If you're not, what are you going to do? But tight end position, not a whole lot to talk about here. Mark Andrews, great, but a little expensive, 6,100 on DraftKings. Also expensive on FanDuel sheet here. Relatively expensive on FanDuel as well, 6,900. Playable, certainly playable if you can afford him. Not somebody I want to force my way up to getting to. It's not like Houston's been bad versus tight ends. I don't think that matters. They're going to throw to him 8 or 9 times a game. He's a good play. Just got to pay a lot for him. Darren Waller, fine. I don't think I'm paying up outside of tournaments. I think there's a lot of risk in paying up a tight end this week, because if you do and that tight end doesn't come through, you're going to have a much worse looking lineup than your opponent. And sometimes you just pay down, and even if it doesn't come through, it's like, okay, at least I didn't pay much here. So it's not going to kill you. Like if you pay $3K or $3,200 or $3,500 for a tight end and he doesn't do much, all right, try to get some floor in there. But if he doesn't do much, okay. But if you pay $5,000, $5,500, $6K and he doesn't do much for you, you're basically fucked. Buffo mentioned the second meeting between two teams, and yes, there is we talked about that on the Wolfpack pod, and now John Statsational is researching it. But yes, fantasy production does get diminished second meeting, because these teams game plan for each other, and then they see what worked and what didn't, and now they can re-game plan. They just know more about each other, and after the second game they know so much that they really can. They've seen a lot of the plays before, so it benefits the defense. All right, so some names that we can pay down to. Jared Cook. Again, we want everything to do with the passing game in this Bucs game, and Bucs are a team that actually filter to tight ends. They're 31st overall. Jared Cook is one of my favorites on the slate. He's coming off a 10-target game last week. The Saints don't really have a lot of other guys that they like to throw to. Ginn and Traquan the Chef. I mean, these guys are not special. Greg Olsen, going to be chalky, a little too chalky for me, I think, but hasn't shown where he's going to get a lot of action every single week. But he's coming off a pretty nice week. He tends to get 4 or 5 passes. He can catch a touchdown. So I like Greg Olsen. Eric Ebron coming off a 10-target game last week. Fine by me. I'll take that again, although he didn't look that great doing it. But nonetheless, again, Jacksonville, neutral. Ebron does have a lower floor than some of these guys. Ross Dwelly, a little cheaper option. 3,400 on DraftKings. He's got the cheat code Arizona defense he's going up against. So somebody mentioned Ross Dwelly in Arizona earlier. I was going to put it on screen when I got to this part, but basically, sure, why not? I mean, he got 7 targets last week. Don't expect much. But, he's a tight end against Arizona, and, San Francisco usually throws to the tight end 7 or 8 times per game. Okay. A couple of names aren't on the list. Hawkinson is playable. Irv Smith from the Vikings in play. Jets, Ryan Griffin almost made the list. Yeah, Jets like to throw to the tight end. They like to throw to tight end. They got nothing against tight ends. And Ryan Griffin, not a good player, but if he gets 6 or 7 targets under 3K, I want to go cheap at tight end this week. I'm trying to afford the studs. So my goal with my tight end position is just get me like 7 points, 7 to 12. That would be awesome. Who can get me 7 to 12? That would be amazing. So that's what I'm hoping for. If you catch a touchdown, a miracle. I think you'll win the tournament if you pay 33K or that range and you get the guy who puts up 17 points. That's like tournament winning number. 15 points. That means you've got a major edge on the field when that happens. So I hope we pick the right guy, but I don't know who it is. Pick your heart's desire. You want to play Knox? You want to play Knox from the Bills? Okay. You want to play Ife Hurt? Okay. Young quarterback likes to throw the tight end. Okay. I'm not gonna argue with you. Dallas Goedert, playable. Irv Smith, playable. Dawson Knox, playable. Ryan Griffin, playable. Fells. Forgot about Fells. Where the fuck is Fells? Damn. Little spendy for Fells. Don't be afraid to catch Fells though. Don't be afraid to catch Fells. But no, it's a little expensive for me, but playable. Playable. You could play him. And as a matter of fact, I think Fells will have a better game because Baltimore's outside corners are elite, which should push extra targets to the tight end position. So don't be afraid to play Fells. You could play him. Playable. Even OJ Howard's playable. There's a lot of guys down here. I want you guys, really, you're watching this. The fact that you're watching this, you've made it with me this long means you want to learn how to be great at daily fantasy football. You enjoy the process of it. You enjoy the research part of it. Everybody else is just like, who to locks? So the fact that you guys are with me this long tells me you want to learn about this shit. You want to be good at it. So take your knowledge, take your leans. Fells is a great suggestion. Like, there's a solid argument for him. No one's going to be on him. That's also great. Like, imagine Fells is the guy that wins you the tournament. So you're here with. So I don't know. Especially tight end. It's so volatile. That's what I talked about at the opening. There's a lot of volatility in daily fantasy football. So much. Play your guy. It's fine. Play your guy. If you don't play your guy and he goes off, you're going to regret it. He's not on the sheet. It doesn't matter. Everybody who's ever won the tournament, like the Millie Maker, like even Bobby Wow, there was one off-sheet guy. Then the other day, when we had the guy win the slant, one of the members, 8 plays right off the Geeks picks, 1, Jonnu Smith wasn't on the sheet. It's always that way. It's that one player. It's that one guy that you thought about that Geek didn't think about. And don't worry when I say, just do it. Just do it. I don't know any better. Daniel Fells, sure. Any one of these tight ends can go. It could be Knox. It could be anyone. Irv Smith. Who the fuck is Irv Smith? Irv Smith had 6 targets last week. As long as Thielen's out, Irv Smith is out there doing his thing for the Vikings. He's playable. Ryan Griffin, look how often the Jets throw to the tight end. So, what's the worst that can happen? He gets 4 or 5 targets and gets you 7 points. Okay. You know what? I'll take it. I need the 7 points. When we do the lineup build, I'm going to talk numbers and you'll get a better sense of this. I really want to get to it. So finally, defense, starting at the bottom, guys. The easy play and the most likely one is going to be just click on the Cardinals. Now, you're probably saying Cardinals fucking suck. Yes, they do. But they're not putting up negative points most weeks. And the San Francisco offense is not the most efficient in the world. And they're missing some key players. And so, as much as I want to spend up for the studs, there is an argument to be made in cash and even in tournaments for just saving the $1,500. Now, this is what I talked about on the other pod. To get to even a mildly reasonable play, you've got to almost pay double, $1,500 all the way to $2,800. And then what happens if you stretch yourself to put in this quote unquote stud defense and they only get you 2 or 3? Now you've dropped $1,500 in salary where you could have spent it somewhere else to do good work for you. So I'd rather just punt it. I'm probably almost a lot going to punt it in cash. I can't imagine not punting it in cash and taking the 0. In tournaments, I think there's some merit to paying up in some builds, especially much more so on FanDuel. So let's jump over to FanDuel for a second. It's much more viable to build good lineups and have enough money left over. My favorite defense on FanDuel, because I just like Arizona on DraftKings, just come punting it, right? My favorite defense on FanDuel is Panthers at 3,700. Why? Because they're almost minimum salary. Cardinals are right here at 35, but I'm playing them all so much on DraftKings. I don't want that crossover. I need the hedge. So the one I'm using on FanDuel is Panthers. Now, if I want to pay up, and sometimes I do, there are lots of great options for it. Redskins facing the Jets, fine. Jets will turn the ball over. I don't love it. I'd rather go up to Vikings, my favorite defense on the entire slate. Buffalo likes the Pats. We'll get to them. But Vikings are my favorite defense. They got some unknown, the worst of the Allens at quarterback coming up for Denver into the Vikings Superdome. Loud, intimidating, good defense, scoring defense, puts pressure on the quarterback, 5 sacks, 4 sacks, 4 sacks, 4 sacks. Can't sack Dak. Can't sack Dak. You can't sack Dak. That's what happened last week. Don't talk smack about Dak. Can't sack him. Can't sack Dak. So I like the Vikings here against Denver. Saints against Tampa. We already said it. Jameis Pick Sixton. He's not called Jameis Pick Sixton because he's good at avoiding turnovers. There's a reason they call him Jameis Pick Sixton. And it's not because he's good with the football. Fucking guy throws pick sixes. That's why they call him Pick Sixton. San Francisco, very much in play. Good scoring defense. Patriots, of course. I've never seen anything like what they've done this year. They've been like one of the best running backs in the entire league. It is worth noting that all of these teams are duty in terms of the ones that they smashed against, but still you can't deny what they've done. They always get sacks. Their defense is spectacular. Play them. I'm not going to talk you off of it. Play them. They're on the road. I get it. They're the most expensive. I get it. Play them. Tournaments. But I'm a little nervous paying all the way up in cash. Cash, I'd rather just pay down. Unless it's FanDuel. On FanDuel, we can get creative. There's a lot more affordability on FanDuel than there is on DraftKings. DraftKings, you can't afford the shit. You do this, you got to give up all kinds of goodies. The difference between Arizona defense and the difference between Arizona defense and Patriots defense on DraftKings, 2K, like you can go from, a mediocre running back to Dalvin Cook. You can go from Jacobs to Dalvin Cook. You can go from Dalvin Cook to Christian McCaffrey. Like what you're giving up is really, really big. Buffo on the beat. What the fuck are you talking about Keenum starting? Dude, get me confirmation on that, please. My understanding is that it's not Keenum, that it's going to be the rookie. If something came out here while I was prepping for this or today that they're going to roll out Case Keenum, then Terry McLaurin becomes a spectacular play. I don't know that. I am not good. That is unconfirmed. Buffalo, go find me some confirmation before you start getting me excited about Terry McLaurin. All right. That's the defenses. Bills, playable. Probably my least favorite. They're on the road, but they're playable. Fucking Fitzpatrick. He also throws a lot of interceptions. All right. Let's do the bottom up lineup construction, guys. This is the part I've been waiting for. It was supposed to happen all within an hour and a half. We're now 2 hours in. The fact that you're still with me is a miracle. But fuck it, man. This is how we teach how to do this stuff. And this is my only way of teaching. I can't type it out. I can't answer a question in Slack and really teach you the technique for build. I'm going to do this for NFL, NBA too. I wish I could. It's hard to do it for NBA because NBA, I'm like busy making my lineups right before lock. Can't really show it. With NFL, I could do it like long in advance. I want to show you how I build lineups. All right, so I always start with the value plays. Now, where am I finding the value plays? Obviously, I've marked them down over here, but a great way to find them is just to jump on the domination station optimizer and sort players by fantasy points per dollar. What does this do? It gives you the best projected values on the slate at each position. Now, you see the quarterbacks that are really good value plays, right? Driscoll, Allen, Breeze, Lamar Jackson, all this good stuff. So these are all the names that we already kind of like. Top value, though, Jeff Driscoll. Crazy. Now let's look at quarterback. Do we want to play Jeff Driscoll as our baseline? Probably not, but I think he's got to be in the mix, in the discussion here as a pay down option. Now at running back, again, I'm going back to names I talked about. Kalen Ballage, I can't go there, guys. I can't. But Miles Sanders, Brian Hill, you got to have these two. If we look at the running back position, Hill, Jacobs, Ballage, Miles Sanders, it hasn't hit him that Howard isn't playing yet. So when that kicks in, his projection will go higher. Right now, it's like, oh, Jordan Howard might still play. He might still play. He might, but I'm assuming he won't. So Josh Jacobs, Brian Hill, I'm not going Ballage or Mostert. On this build, I'm going to go with Jacobs in the third spot. I'm going to go with Sanders, Hill, and Jacobs. Again, we change it. We change it if we have to. Now, you might say, why Jacobs? Why not go Kenyon Drake or something? Because he's not a cash play. I'm trying to build sort of what I would consider to be a great cash lineup. And then we'll build out of that into hybrids, right? I already talked about the defense I want. I'm just paying down, going the cheapest. Now we've got 7K left per spot. So let's look at some cheap, viable. Let's look at some cheap, viable tight ends. Talk about Ryan Griffin. I don't mind him. We talked about Irv Smith. Could be played. 6 targets the last 2 weeks. What's wrong with that? Now, Denver, I'm going to throw Irv Smith in there. But anybody can, we could go up to Dwelly, Ross Dwelly, if you like, with this spot. We can go up to, I told you guys already, there's a lot of viable tight ends. And whatever you choose, I'm down with it. Now the wide receivers. And again, I'm just going to start with my cheapest viable. So I think Gage, of course, he's our, Mohamed Sanu replacement guy. I'm going to go Dede Westbrook. I like him. And I'm going to go Deebo Samuel. He's going to be chalk. I can't spell it. It's 2 E's and Deebo. That's my big punk. Okay. Now we've started with a lineup. We've built it. Now you're looking at it going, what the fuck is this? I'm not playing this shit. Yeah. Buffo, I don't think he's starting, my man. I think he's just going to be active in the backup. So they've named Dwayne Haskins for the rest of the season. I don't think that it's going to be Case Keenum. If it was, I would love Terry McLaurin, though. But I don't trust Terry Mack as much with, Dwayne Haskins. I don't know what Dwayne Haskins' deal is. McLaurin is playable, though. So looking at this lineup, what do we have? We've got 13K left over to spend. So now you start to look at the lineup and you go, all right, where can I improve it? Well, I already like Josh Jacobs. Brandon Allen. Who the fuck did I use? Brandon Allen? I meant to put Jeff Driscoll in there. Hold on. No Brandon Allen. No Brandon Allen. Jeff Driscoll, 13-2. Now, we like Christian McCaffrey. Let's see what happens. Interesting. Still got 7,500 left. We like Lamar Jackson. Okay. Still got 400 left. That's my back, punk. Still Deebo Samuel in there. Thank you for noticing. I throw those in there to see if anybody notices. All right. So now we've got Lamar Jackson, and I want to count the points here for my cash game. Now, this is a little sneaky thing that I do. Let's say I think I need about 170 points to really be cool in cash. I need about 170. Where can I lock in the 170? So Lamar Jackson, 30 points. Back down to Jeff Driscoll, 15. $15 versus 30. I've got McCaffrey in my lineup. 30 points. That's 30, 60. I've got the Colonel Sanders in here. I think he's good for 10 at 4K, maybe 12. So 30, 60, 72. Russell Gage should be good for 10. 82 points. D.D. Westbrook, wild card. Don't know. If he's healthy and he's out there, he should be good for 12 to 15 points. So I lost my count. I just lost my count. I don't remember where I was at. That's the problem with doing this live. Where was I at? 80? 95. Deebo Samuel, 100. Irv Smith, 6. So 106. This can't be right. 106. Put in Josh Jacobs, 20 fantasy points. That's 125. Cardinals defense, 4. We're at 130 fantasy points. We're trying to get to 170 or 150 sort of expectation. We're at 130. Luckily, I've got another 4,400 to allocate here. So what can I do to raise up my expectation with a lineup like this? I don't want to fuck with the tight end position. There's no stability coming from there. I've already got my favorite trio of running backs in here. I got the best projected quarterback on the slate. So I've got to improve my wide receiver position. Now, what happens if I put in Michael Thomas and his 30 lock fantasy points plus? Okay. Now I've only got 3K left. That's a problem. The only person who I can afford here is Kendrick Bourne. So the only way that this lineup comes together is if I use Kendrick Bourne as my final piece. Now, having Gage and Bourne together in the same lineup, it feels a little gross. So where else do I have to sacrifice? Well, I mean, Gage could be a 0. Bourne could be a 0. Smith, I could get 0. Or this trio of 369K in salary, I need 27 fantasy points out of this group. 10, 20, let's say 12, 8, 5. I don't like it. Not quite there. But we're close. So the other way to go would be to say, you know what? Let me back off of this guy and let me put in some better wide receivers, maybe a better tight end. So now what if I go to Jared Cook, who I like a lot? Now, how about instead of Michael Thomas, who's crazy expensive, we go to Michael Evans, and then I could finish it out with Deebo Samuel. That looks a little better. Now I've got Evans in here. Now he doesn't have the floor of a Michael Thomas by any stretch, but I mean, he certainly tends to get a pretty good score, a little scary in cash, but very playable and has a lot of upside. The other option is to come off of Christian McCaffrey, which is really, really sickening, and to come down to like a Dalvin Cook, in which case I can afford Mike Thomas. I'll have to punt a little bit better with my tight end, like a Hawkinson, and do something like that. Or go even lower, back down to Irv Smith, and now I can get D.D. Westbrook, who I like a little bit more, a little bit lower owned. That looks pretty good, right? Let's count this one up. So this is just our baseline, how we're going to build a cash lineup. And now next I'm going to show you how to take this and then start building tournament lineups off of it. And that's the part I'm really more excited about. So there are definitely games you could do onslaught stacks. So let me get to that here in a second. But I'm just going to total this up for you. I'm not saying this is my cash lineup. I just threw this together here live. But, you know, and I think I still want Christian McCaffrey over Mike Thomas. But if you look at this, you might say, all right, Lamar Jackson, 30. Miles Sanders, 15. That's 45. Dalvin Cook, 25. That's 70. Gage, 10. 80. Michael Thomas, 30. That's 110. D.D. Westbrook, I think I can get 15 out of him. That's 125. Irv Smith, 5 points. That's 130. Josh Jacobs, 20 points, 150. Cardinals defense, 5 points. That's 155. Now, that would be my expectation. If any of these guys smash value, we could do a little bit better. So this is a lineup that is pretty cashy in the way that it's constructed and the total points that we can expect. Now, how do we take this lineup and say, well, now, Kevin, I want to build this isn't correlated. So I don't want this in tournaments. This is more of a cash approach. No correlation here whatsoever. None of it. So how do we take this and turn it into a tournament lineup? I'll show you. We start by looking at the quarterback position, right? So we get off Lamar Jackson. Let me go to a cheaper quarterback, Jameis Winston. Love Winston stacks every week. You want to talk about who can you onslaught stack? This game, any high total game is onslaught stackable. If you look at the game totals for the week, and especially game totals that are rising, Texans Baltimore is stackable that way. Certainly, I think one of the best ones is we're 49 here. We got Bengals Oakland. Nah, I wouldn't do that one. We want close and high scoring. Falcons Panthers, Texans Baltimore. Those are your two tops. And maybe Saints Bucks is the biggest one and the best one of them all, I think. So let's do a Saints Bucks type of onslaught. In order to make this work, if I have Winston, I absolutely want one of Evans or Godwin, sometimes both, but I need at least one in my lineup, right? Now, I would like a player from the Saints so I could try Kamara. It's going to be very difficult to afford. It's going to be very difficult to afford Michael Thomas with any sort of other goodness in the lineup. It doesn't work. But I could put Jared Cook in here. Now I've created something close to an onslaught stack. And here's a nice thing. I've got a lot of salary left over. Guess what I can do? Double down. Check this out. Winston, Godwin, Evans. I've got Kamara, Cook. This is an onslaught game stack. Look at all this NOTB. NOTB. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's an onslaught stack, Alex GTP. Just saw it happen live. Boom. Book it. It's in the slant. It's in the slant. Don't play the same one. That's my money. That's my lineup. That's my back punk. That's my back punk. But I just do. Okay. Now it's like, all right, Geek, you showed us how to do one. That's it. What the fuck? No, do it again. How about a Driscoll? How about a Driscoll stack? Why the fuck would you want a Driscoll stack? Because with a Driscoll stack, other good things can fit in your lineup. So sometimes it's not about the highest scoring grouping. Somebody mentioned Driscoll to Hawkinson earlier. Okay, well, look what I just did. I opened up $2,700 worth of salary. Oh, I like it. Now, I don't want no Kamara in my Driscoll stack, so I'll go back to Christian McCaffrey. I don't want Evans and Godwin, but since I can afford Driscoll, Dallas, Detroit. Is there anybody I want from Dallas? Probably not. Probably not. We got Mike Thomas, Christian McCaffrey in the same lineup together? That's crazy. Now, let's say you want to do something like very game specific. You can do something like this. Zeke. put DJ Moore in there because we took out Christian McCaffrey. So again, what are we saying here? We said this is a lineup where I'm not using Christian McCaffrey. So let's use one of the other Studley running backs. I'll afford Michael Thomas in it. Now I have all this extra money left over. Now you might say, you know what? How about this? Amari Cooper. How about this? Make this a special lineup where you play a different defense. Tournament. Now, I don't want no DJ Moore in my tournament lineup as now that I think about it, because that fucker is going to be so chalk, it's not even funny. So, you could find a different approach. Cooper. Who else is tied to this game? Amendola? Ugh. But that's what you got to do. Michael Gallup. I don't love this. I'm not going to play Gallup. So wait, let's switch this up. I don't like Zeke with those guys. I'm going to switch it up. So now I've got, check this out. Check this out. Check me, bro. We just took our baseline lineup, right? And very quickly we said, all right, let's do a stack around Dallas and Detroit. Driscoll to Amendola to Hawkinson. Not your favorites, but the other guys on this team are crazy payups. Now we can do a different way. I could take him out and I can go Marvin Jones. Or how much is Galladay? I have a hard. Where's Jones? Damn. You know what? I have a hard time paying up for Galladay or Jones Jr. I really, really do. I really, really do. But fuck it. Fuck it. For the purpose of this example, now I'm going to remove Galladay. I'm going to remove Amendola since I already played Galladay. I've got Cooper in there. I'm going to put in that Deebo Samuel. A little chalky. All right. I got 100 left. You know what? I can put Pat's defense in here. Fuck it. YOLO. Done. That's how you build a lineup off of your core. Hand built. You take your core, switch the quarterback, start building around that quarterback's game. We start with our core of the cheapest players that we're comfortable with. Let's go back to Gage. Oh, yeah, I forgot about Gage. All right, let's go back to Gage. I like Gage. He's a big salary saver. Now, let's see if I can get, Michael Thomas. Now, let's switch up the quarterback. Who do we want to go with this time? That's how we do it. Switch up the quarterback. Want to do a Kyle Allen? All right. Another lineup where I'm not using Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't feel good. But if I'm using Kyle Allen, how about, you know what? My favorite guy to stack? I love this motherfucker. See, this is why you got to spend time doing it. And when you sit here, you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about Matt Ryan. Oh, you know what? You know what I like to do with Matt Ryan? You know what I like to do? I like to get both of his pass catch. I got to get him with two guys. So how about Calvin Ridley? How have I not used Calvin Ridley yet? He's one of my favorite plays. How about Julio Jones? If Marley was here, he would be screaming because Marley plays Julio Jones whenever he's viable. No one's going to play Ryan to Julio Jones this week, and it's very viable. Now, is the matchup the best on paper? No, but again, there's injuries, blah, blah, blah. So now I've got Atlanta, Carolina. So what are they doing? They're throwing. Now everybody's on DJ Moore. We don't want DJ Moore and his 25% ownership in massive tournaments. So let's pivot over to Curtis Samuels. Why can't I afford good things, nice things? I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Samuel, Ridley, Jones. I need a pay down, or who's a running back that I could afford? Alvin Kamara. Don't love it. Don't love it. Put this guy in over here. Now, one thing, what happens if I do that? I got Miles Sanders in there. Go back to Irv. You want to switch it up. Go back to Irv. Go to Colin Blodgett. Yuck. Right? But, I see the problem. Yeah, I see the problem. How about this? Now I've got some money to spend. So, how about that? Want to do a Josh Allen, Smokey Brown one? We could do that. I just want to point out, I like Josh Allen, Smokey Brown way better on FanDuel because Brown is a lot cheaper. Love him on FanDuel. He's a little expensive on DraftKings, but check out what you could do on FanDuel. Start going through these guys, right? There's a lot more affordability going on here. At this point, you can go back to Brian Hill. He's a yardage guy. He could do some damage here. How about that? You could play some cheapies. You can also just say you don't need to because the wide receiver position, like had we done this on FanDuel, it's actually much more interesting this week because you actually have way better bargains. More is cheaper, but look at all these cheapies. Tyler Boyd, my boy Mohamed Sanu is down here. You get Calvin Ridley all the way down there. So you could really afford a lot of stuff here. We get the tight end, go Mark Andrews, say YOLO. Let's pair him up with his quarterback. That's my quarterback, right? Put a defense in, whoever you want. Now I've got 10,900 in the flex. We put in the stud of all studs. Great. How about that? You don't want to do that? How about instead of that, we take the running back position, and instead of going with ridiculous, crazy, expensive studs, we put in regular dudes, just dudes, right? Just the dudes. 7,600 left. So I can put in Hill. I think Hill is a much better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings because I'm looking for yardage, and then I can put whoever I want. Right now, I actually have enough money to move up off of Hill and get to 6,800. Who can I afford at 6,800? I don't know. How about Tevin Coleman? Okay. Or how about somebody like even more? Devin Singletary. Boom. Done. Making lineups. Where's Brown? Where's Marquise? Do one with Marquise Brown. There he is. Now I got a little more to spend. 600. All right. Who can I upgrade? I don't know. How about running back again? Let's take another look. I always try to upgrade that running back spot. Can't upgrade it. That didn't work. How about this guy? Let's put in Dalvin Cook instead. Now I've got a stack. Vikings Cook. I like that. I've got Sanu. I've got Ridley. We love him just in general. I've got 400 to spend. I got Lamar Jackson. I got him stacked with Mark Andrews. Devin Singletary, great play overall. Fournette, just a solid all-around lineup. Fine. Double stack Lamar Jackson. Now, I'd like to get a Houston guy in here because actually, as I'm looking at it, maybe we'll go with Carlos Hyde in this one. Maybe I can upgrade this spot a little bit to a guy who sometimes scores touchdowns. I don't know. It's fine. All right. Hopefully that showed it. I don't want to keep this going. It's 2.5 hours in. You guys got to make some fucking lineups. So I got to make some lineups. Just some notes about myself. I've got the King of the Beach tomorrow, part 2. What that means is there's 200 entrants. The top 75 will advance to round 3. I really hope I make it. Want to go to the beach. Fingers crossed. That's what I'll be spending a lot of my time. I'm probably not mass multi-entering because I want to spend most of my time fucking around with that lineup. And Alex is asking, should we ever leave money on the table? It's okay to leave a few hundred on the table with fantasy football, daily fantasy football. I do not leave like 1,000 or more than that unless the slate is very, very small. The salaries are pretty correct to player values for the most part, and there's no reason to leave a lot of money on the table in these type of lineups. And there are no ties in mass tournaments, so it's not a factor at all. Other sports like NASCAR, like MMA, where the nuts lineup is hit every single tournament, yes. Or showdown single game contests, yes. Or basketball, especially in smaller contests with just 2 or 3 games, yes. And NFL, just a couple games, yes, you can leave. But not on a main slate like this. Not in a main slate. You don't want to leave any money on the table. Guys, any more questions from the questioners? I see your comments. I see the comments. Buffo's the only guy who comments for the most part. A little Alex at AGTP, a couple other guys. I see your comments, guys. So if that's going to be it, let's call it a day. Players Club. So if that's going to be it, I'm going to call it a day. Get to making some. Oh, wait. Oh, we got a question. Here we go. I will definitely do it. Dave, I will. It's going to, it could be a painful one. It could be a brutal one. You know, it just could be. So I'm just giving you advance notice. No locks here, man. Everybody in that contest is good. Everybody in that contest is good. So I'm nervous. Like I'll be shitting bricks making that. I get nervous for shit like that. Hell yeah. So everybody is good. But I will do a recap. I'll do a recap what I made, why I made it. And let's hope, man. Fingers crossed. Like I said, hey, I made it to the final of the MMA version with all 3 of my entries. I had 3 entries in. There were 3 steps. I made it 1, 2, 3 steps in. Browns, you think I had fucking time to look at NBA on a Saturday when I'm doing the Players Club and doing all my NFL content? No. But in about a minute, because it's 6 o'clock, I will jump on that. Let me give you guys a quick hint because you're here with me. I jump on the domination station. I press optimize. And I run that fucking lineup in cash games. Yeah, Burns. If I can't do it, I hope Burns does it. I really do. If I can't make it, I hope it's Burnsy. I hope we both make it. We'll be hanging out together. Families. But, I hope to rep for the Army there. I really do. We'll see what happens. But let me tell you what I do for NBA. I just press optimize. Like I don't have any time to research. Last night I played the optimal on FanDuel. It fucking crushed. I got a 317. I cashed in my tournaments. You guys should be playing NBA if you're not. It's a lot easier than NFL. NFL, I told you, it's an art. There's a like an art about making these lineups. You saw me just sitting here making them. It's not super fluid, and you got to make a bunch of them to hope to have a shot at the tournament. NBA, you just click the button. Sometimes you see like a turd in there that you don't like. Like, I don't like this fucking guy. Take him out. Like yesterday, I saw like Westbrook. I'm like, fucking Westbrook's been shitty. Let me dislike him. That kind of thing. Like 1 or 2 swaps off the optimal is usually all you need to win an NBA tournament. All right, guys. That's going to do it. Good luck this week. I'll be around as always. I'm up all night making lineups. You guys know it. Be around. Try to answer as many questions as I can in Slack. We'll crush it tomorrow. Let's do this. Take care, everyone.